vale there was a wood,
the prettiest wood you ever did see.
It caused a mild scandal at the time, but in most people's memories it was quite outshone by what succeeded it. It was an error of judgment which resulted in a death. It took place in autumn, before the outbreak of what used to be known as the Great War. In 1913, Nettleby Park in Oxfordshire belonged to Sir Randolph Nettleby, Baronet. Before the Thames, running eastward through clay country, reaches Oxford, it runs for some distance beside a belt of mixed woodland, which forms the boundary of Nettleby. Most of the planting had been done by Sir Randolph's grandfather, an early enthusiast for the sport of shooting game, and the house itself had been extended in 1868 by Sir Randolph's great-uncle. A new wing was added, containing a billiard room, a gun room and a study. Randolph was very fond of this study. It was here he kept his game book, bound in black Morocco leather.
Rabbits 22, hares 12, woodcock 2, pheasants 612. Guns, Gilbert Hartlip, Lionel Stevens, Count Rockershy of Hungary, Sir Reuben Hergesheimer, Bob Lilburn, Charles Farquhar. Hardly a gun, Charles. Only here because Minnie says it's de rigueur to invite him wherever Aline Hartlip goes.
Grandmother says to tell you they've gathered for tea. Grandpapa, you're to come.
Done already, are they? Do you suppose people have given up washing after a shoot, Osbert?
Nanny says I must wash, because of a duck.
Why you've taken a duck as a pet is beyond me.
You're always writing in that book.
It's my game book, Oz. Here are the seasons. And this is today, see? October 1913, first day of the shoot. And here is a secret. Look. If I turn the book around and open it from the back, this is where I put down my thoughts.
You write what you're thinking?
Well, not a bad habit, writing down one's thoughts. Saves one having to bother anyone else with them.
Yeah.
Among the guests at Nettleby that weekend was a young barrister, Lionel Stevens. Sir Randolph admired Lionel's determination to lead a useful life. He was making the beginnings of a brilliant career, when he might easily have stayed on his Lincolnshire estate and continued being an amateur sportsman. The sort of life, in fact, that Sir Randolph had lived. At tea in the drawing-room, Lionel was talking to the beautiful Olivia Lilburn, whose husband, Lord Lilburn, Bob, was another of the guns that weekend.
Have you found time for the Ruskin?
Yes. I'm afraid Bob doesn't approve.
Oh dear, I hope he doesn't think my giving it to you was...
What? Oh, no. Bob would consider jealousy bad form. It's Ruskin's politics he doesn't like, the sentiment.
The upper classes would be healthier if they spent more time mowing their own fields and less galloping over other people's.
That sort of thing, yes. Bob prefers Gilbert Hartlip as a model.
Great sportsman, Lord Hartlip.
Olivia looked across the room at Gilbert Hartlip, the great sportsman, conversing confidently with Sir Randolph. As she did so, the butler opened the door to allow a maid with a silver tray into the room. Instead, in waddled a wild duck, a young female mallard in the peak of condition.
Oh, Lionel, look!
With a surprisingly loud spluttering sound, it emitted a large damp dropping, then began to dabble or graze on the Persian carpet. A chase ensued.
Show him this way. Come. Whoa, duck. Whoa, duck. Stead. That's it.
Well done, Gilbert. Take her, Osbert, before she makes a mess of Lord Hartlip's suit.
Come on, duck.
Now, say thank you to Lord Hartlip and sorry to Grandmama for all the disruption.
Thank you, Lord Hartlip. And sorry, Grandmama.
How beautiful.
A rather unusual pet.
I found her on the river. Her name's Elfrida. She lost her mother.
She doesn't fly away?
She does. She goes down to the river with the other ducks. But she comes back at night and sometimes in the day.
Better hang on to her tomorrow, Oz. Keep her inside.
Yes, if she's with the wild duck, she'll be for it. You hear that, duck? Fly over me and you have no hope. Bang! Bang!
If you kill her, then I shall kill you.
Osbert.
Yeah? Well, tell me, young man, how'd you propose to do that?
By prayer.
Gilbert Hartlip was indeed one of the best shots in England. Randolph thought it a pleasure to see him in action, sometimes an anxiety as well, for he had the star performer's temperament. He also had a habit of allowing his loader to keep his personal score. Randolph privately considered this not sporting. The Nettleby shoot had been modelled on Sandringham, a matter of great pride to Sir Randolph's wife, Minnie. Randolph chose never to mention the fact that her enjoyment of the late King's approval and his own efforts to bring his sporting facilities up to the standard expected by a royal guest had all but bankrupted the estate. These days, and for many years past, Minnie's great passion at shooting parties was bridge.
Perhaps a rubber or two would be nice. Charles? Aline?
I believe that is your call to action, Aline. The bridge fever is upon her.
Yes. I'd rather enjoy little Ween. I've had a beastly Sahara witch. Tell me, Randolph, what do you make of young Lionel and the beautiful Olivia?
Olivia is a wife and mother. Lionel is an outstanding barrister and a fine shot.
Yes. Did you notice this afternoon, during the shoot, the way the loaders were scorekeeping?
Gilbert always keeps his own score, shoots against himself. He's your husband, you know that.
But Lionel's loader was keeping his personal tally too and comparing his score with Gilbert's.
Nonsense. Lionel's not interested in equaling Gilbert.
No, with Olivia standing by watching and the madness of love running in his veins.
Aline, do come.
Coming, Minnie. Are you joining us, Randolph?
No, I don't think so. I've got some...
Randolph had partnered his wife at bridge once 30 years ago and hadn't touched a card since. Mumbling something about papers to sign in his study, he made for the door. As he did so, his eye fell on Olivia talking to Lionel. That was real beauty, he thought. A beautiful woman, a handsome man.
Minnie's indefatigable.
Yes.
Oh, I have no competitive spirit whatsoever. Do you think that's odd, Lionel?
Not odd, no.
At shooting parties, I'm aware how differently I feel from a man. It's the sacrificial solemnity, the note of death. Oh, I do wish we hadn't laughed at young Osbert earlier.
You didn't laugh, Olivia.
It's just having a son myself. I wonder, who makes these rules of manly behaviour? Who says it's the height of heroism to kill? And why must there be a living sacrifice? Osbert has strong emotions, but things being as they are, he'll be educated to be on the side of the guns, against the ducks.
We all have to school our emotions to some extent.
Perhaps. But if I were God, I'd be inclined to grant Osbert's prayer. You're shocked.
A little shaken, yes. Not at what you say, but that you choose to share it with me.
Oh, I believe you are a friend who won't laugh when I say what I think.
I think we've just broken the rules. We've been serious. Bad form, you know.
Yes. Well, let's smile, giggle and pretend we were telling terrible stories about Aline and Charles Farquhar. Thank you.
For what?
Allowing me to be serious.
Comfortable in the seclusion of his study, Randolph turned to an early entry in the rear pages of the game book and read aloud.
December the 14th, 1893. My 40th birthday. Letter from Minnie at Easton Lodge. She's there with Daisy Brooke, which means with the Prince of Wales.
In the early days of her marriage to Randolph, Minnie was a regular visitor to royal parties. It was possible that royal desire for her might have been interpreted as a royal command. Randolph had never asked her about that. Apart from this possible exception, and despite occasional gossip, Minnie had remained Randolph's faithful wife. Randolph had kept all her letters. She had written to him from great houses, from spas, from palaces. The birthday letter had been brief, but warm.
Of course, you have always been wise enough to be 40, which makes me wonder why you put up with me, who am silly enough to be 16. How I wish I were with you.
Few would have guessed how sincerely she had meant it. Minnie had appeared very flighty as a young married woman, but this was a false impression. The truth was that Randolph disliked society, and Minnie disliked sex. Yet as the years went by, their mutual disappointment made them more tender of each other's feelings. Turning the game book to an empty page, Randolph picked up his pen and wrote.
Minnie likes a houseful, especially after a fortnight in Marienbad, which may or may not improve her liver, but invariably increases her appetite for society. If they must come, at least they can get some decent shooting. If nothing else, I can play the part of head gamekeeper.
That evening, Randolph's eldest grandchild, Cicely, had been flirting with Tibor Rokoshi. Ellen, the lady's maid, paid special attention to Cicely, who at 19 had large brown eyes, a small aquiline nose, and a mass of fair hair with a tendency to escape from its confining pins. As Ellen brushed out Cicely's hair, they giggled about the handsome Hungarian.
If I marry him, then you and John will have to come to Hungary as valet and lady's maid, and we'll gallop on fur-lined sledges across the great snow-covered Hungarian plain from one glittering palace to another. Are they Roman Catholics, do you suppose?
Late into the night, Randolph was writing in his game book, setting down his thoughts, seated at the big brass-bound desk in the solitude of his study.
Aline Hartlip is a troublemaker. She has what Minnie would call a mauvaise langue. Lionel Stevens is a fine young man. He doesn't care for politics and has chosen the law in order to lead a useful and interesting life. He can see what's happening. Politicians determined to turn this country into an urban society instead of a rural one, taking away the power of the landed proprietor. For generations we ran the country, and it did not suffer from our rule.
Lionel Stevens was in the rather chilly bedroom which had been allotted to him, attempting to write a letter.
My dear, did you notice when you smiled, I couldn't look at you? There is a certain smile you have which I cannot meet. Not because it dazzles me, though it is dazzling, but because it is so innocent. As if you do not know how much I love you. How much... No. Hopeless. Try again. My dear, my darling, my... Oh, Olivia.
In his study, Sir Randolph, pen still in hand, gazed at his familiar surroundings. The tiger-skin rug, the books, the stuffed bear, 6 foot high and grimacing horribly, shot by his father in the Rocky Mountains in 1874, when he was ADC to the Governor of Canada. Minnie knocked quietly and entered.
They've all gone up.
Good.
You look thoughtful.
Yes. I have an idea to write a pamphlet.
Oh?
Everything's changing, Minnie. An age, perhaps even a civilization, is coming to an end all over Europe. Very bad for our young men. If the landlord class goes, everything goes. If you take away the function of an aristocracy, what else can it do but play games too seriously?
So, a pamphlet?
Mm-hmm. Decently printed and so on.
Good. Good. All ready for tomorrow's shooting?
Yes, except Glass says John Page can't beat for us. Hurt his back on one of today's drives. Glass says he'll bring in Tom Harker as replacement.
Harker?
The poacher, yes, but only for the pot, Glass says. Tom Harker's a good man, Minnie.
All in this wood there was a tree, the prettiest tree you ever did see. Well, the tree was in
Sir Randolph Nettleby opened the window wide and looked into the darkness of Nettleby Park. It was the first night of the shooting party, and his guests, the guns and their wives, had retired to bed. Alone, he leant out into the night air. It seemed colder. From the trees on one side of the lawn, the vixen whom he knew to frequent that particular copse suddenly emerged and crossed the lawn, stiff tail straight out behind, at a steady trot, preoccupied with her own concerns, indifferent to his. Without bothering to think why, he said aloud,
"Good night, little fox," and
turned back into his room. Aline was in her room, sitting at her dressing table, wearing a dark blue satin peignoir and polishing her nails with an ivory-backed nail buffer. A knock on the door made her heart beat distinctly faster.
Charles.
She looked at herself in the mirror and saw that her pale cheeks were flushed and her eyes bright.
Bitch.
The self-hate in the whisper was mingled with self-love. She moved to the door, conscious of the touch of the satin on her naked body.
Oh. Gilbert.
Sorry, it's my head. I wondered if you had any of those sachets.
Yes, of course.
I could stay a bit if you wanted.
My dear, it's not one of our weeks. Besides, you need rest if you're to do yourself justice tomorrow. You don't want people thinking Lionel Stevens is a better shot than you.
Is that what people say?
Stevens is a conceited prig.
You're only saying that because you're tiring of Charles and would have liked a flirtation with young Lionel, who has other preoccupations.
That is the sort of bitter remark we said we would avoid. You started all this with that hag in Maid of Vale.
It's quite usual for men to have distractions without it affecting their devotion to their wives.
Go, please. I'm getting a headache too.
Very well. I'll have a good night's sleep, and then I'll beat him. I'll show them all.
On the road between Nettleby Hall and the village, Tom was making his way, watchful and with his collie at his feet. Tom had spent the late afternoon watching the shoot, and then, from his place of concealment among the trees, had gone to his traps to see what he had caught. When he reached home, he would find a message from gamekeeper Glass, bidding him to beat at the next day's shoot. John Page had hurt his back and a replacement was needed. But at that moment his greatest concern was getting home undetected. Suddenly, the collie stopped dead. Around the corner, moving at a steady pace, came a tall figure, surmounted by a wide-brimmed hat and wrapped in a Norfolk jacket and a long scarf.
Good evening, friend.
Good evening to you, sir.
I wonder if you would be good enough to direct me to the nearest inn. I seem to have missed my way.
That'll be the Nettleby Arms, sir, in the village. You're walking away from it. If you walk with me a little way, I can point you in the right direction.
Oh, that would be very kind. I see you have a bad leg. Were you in South Africa, perhaps? In the army?
Tom Harker was a thatcher, who wandered in search of work or perhaps just from love of wandering. Rumour had it he had a wife in another village. He knew the Nettleby woods well and was skilful at all manner of poaching.
No, sir. Man-trap did that.
Man-trap? Good God. And all to ensure there should be enough poor beasts for someone else to murder.
The reason for his straight-legged walk was, in fact, to conceal the rabbit he had under his coat.
Is there much shooting on the estate?
Aye. This is Sir Randolph Nettleby's place. Some of the best shooting in the country. The king himself has shot here.
Ghastly.
Aye. Taking food from the poor man's pot.
Murder?
You might say so, in a sense.
Must we kill our brothers and sisters in order to eat?
Oh, I should hope not, indeed.
Well, until we recognize the universal kinship of all living creatures, we shall remain in outer darkness.
Ah.
All we need are the fruits of the field and orchard.
They do say the Lord will provide.
I have walked a good 20 miles today and could go on for another 10. No flesh has passed my lips for 5 years.
Tom was not a vegetarian. Far from it. But he did hold strong opinions. His oft-repeated views on the evils of drink were well known. In spite of his elusiveness, and the fact that he was known to do a bit of poaching, he was looked on in the village as a respectable man.
Will they be out tomorrow about their purposes of massacre?
It's nothing to me, sir. Pastimes of the rich. Now, if you go straight on to the crossroads, Nettleby Arms is 100 yards to your left.
Oh, I can't thank you enough. Oh, here, let me give you this leaflet. It enlarges a little on what we've been saying. I can see you're a fellow spirit.
Cornelius Cardew continued on his way, much encouraged by his encounter. It seemed to him that among these country people there was a directness of understanding, an instant and almost wordless appreciation. He imagined that good man by his fireside, his worthy wife ladling out some sort of health-giving hot pot. Fairly health-giving anyway, for it was too much to hope the family might be so enlightened as already to have forsworn meat. While the children gathered round to hear the words he would be reading to them from the pamphlet.
The rights of animals, a vindication of the doctrine of universal kinship.
While Sir Randolph was watching the vixen cross the lawn, John the footman was in the boiler room. He liked the boiler room. It was warm and private. When Ellen the lady's maid wrote him a note, it was usually in the boiler room that he read it. This time, it was not a note from Ellen that he wanted to read, but the letter which he had taken from the wastepaper basket of Mr. Lionel Stephen's room. It was torn in half and crumpled, but quite easy to piece together.
My dear, did you notice when you smiled I couldn't look at you? There is a certain smile you have which I cannot meet.
The letter spoke of love, of poetry, of politics, of the possibility that the militaristic regime in Germany would insist on a trial of strength sooner or later.
I can't positively say I want a war, and yet one gets a feeling sometimes. Life is so extraordinarily pleasant for those of us who are fortunate enough to have been born in the right place. Ought it to be so pleasant, and for so few of us? If it came, you see, my dear, it would be you I should be fighting for.
The letter gave John a good deal to think about. If Mr. Stevens was in love, he might soon be getting married, and would be looking for a hard-working young couple as valet and lady's maid. It was not this, however, which was making John so thoughtful. It was rather the feeling of recognising certain emotions, which until that moment he would not have known how to express.
You are truth because you are beauty, or beauty because you are truth. And you cannot stop me dying for you, although I would much rather live for you if you would let me.
Obviously that was how Mr. Stevens would feel when he was in love. And now that John had read it, he understood that that was how, in a slightly different way, of course, he felt about Ellen. They did look into each other's eyes, and she did stand for everything good in his life. As for fighting for her, for a better world, well, if there was a war, if Mr. Stevens went to it, John would go with him. He had never told Ellen that she was truth, because she was beauty, because it had never occurred to him to do so. But now he knew it could be done, he saw no reason not to remedy the omission. It was hardly dawn when Tom Harker got up and went into his kitchen to rake out the embers of his stove and coax it back into a flame. When the kettle boiled, he made himself a pot of strong black tea and cut himself several thick slices of fat bacon, which he ate with brown bread. As the first low sun shone through the windows at Nettleby, Ellen hurried up the back stairs with 4 shining brass hot water cans, 2 in each hand, and 4 white linen face towels, 2 over each arm. John watched her.
You'll drop them.
I won't unless you make me. Here, watch out! What are you doing?
I'm putting a letter in your pocket. I want you to read it when you're alone.
What does it say?
You'll see.
You don't care for me anymore. That's it, isn't it?
Of course I do, silly. That's what it's about.
Tom Harker went outside to let out his dog. He peed beside the cabbage patch and set up a brief plume of steam. There had been a slight frost. He went inside again and set about skinning the rabbit. His sharp knife moved with precision. The bare, bloody rabbit was quickly disemboweled, cut into joints, and put into a pot with onions and carrots. At Gamekeeper Glass's cottage, breakfast was more elaborate, involving a clean tablecloth and a big teapot with a pattern of flowers on it, piles of toast and boiled eggs. Glass and his son Dan looked after themselves. Mrs. Glass had died 5 years ago. Now Dan piled the dishes by the sink, but Glass was restless to get away.
Leave them be, Dan.
Right.
We need to be there before the rest of them. And I want to go past Tom Harker's place, make sure we got the message, darn him. I don't like giving him a look at the ground, but there's no one else. Well, come on now.
Cornelius Cardew lay on his hard bed at the Nettleby Arms, staring at the ceiling. He had given the innkeeper's wife a packet of peppermint tea, with instructions to make a pot of it and bring it to him at 8 o'clock. It was now 8:15, and there was no sign of the tea. The previous evening's discussions in the public bar had not gone well, and he had been forced to the conclusion that the villagers' political attitudes were more influenced by their suspicion of outsiders than by their desire for reform. He'd had to drop the question of animal rights. It had aroused positive hostility. but they had hardly seemed more responsive on the matter of their own rights.
They'd never give the vote to such as we.
That's where you're wrong, sir, in my way of thinking.
And if they did, who'd be next? Townspeople? Slum dwellers and that?
Oh, gypsies.
Well, Jez says right. Yes.
Humanity could be such a disappointment. Education, that was the answer. If people were educated to see the excellences of a socialist Arcadia, all would be well. Before retirement, Cardew had taught at one of England's public schools. He had been a good teacher, but one was reaching only a tiny elite, those who could afford the fees. Now an ambitious thought struck him. An experimental school, with secure enough financial backing to be able to offer half the places free. What if there were a philanthropic millionaire among the slaughtering landowners' guests at the shooting party? Or royalty? He had been told that the king often shot there. What about the king's foreign relations? The Kaiser himself, maybe?
Allow me, Herr Cardew, to set up a small international trust with unlimited funds for co-educational progressive schools, the vanguard, the prototype, so to speak, of the New World Order.
Your Imperial Highness is too kind.
Up early, as was his habit on shooting days, Sir Randolph sat in his study, thinking he might deal with 1 or 2 letters before breakfast. The study, which had changed so little, made him feel nostalgic for the shoots of his boyhood, when the old Queen was still on the throne and nobody had ever heard of Lloyd George. He was aroused by the sound of voices from the billiard room. He went to see and was surprised to find Lord Gilbert Hartlip aiming a gun at the head of Julius Caesar, which surmounted a large wall cupboard containing billiard cues.
Ah, my dear, do forgive me. One of my loaders hasn't been with me very long, and with these new guns I thought we'd just have a minute or two's drill, don't you know?
Shouldn't have thought you needed it. Seemed to go like clockwork yesterday.
Gilbert Hartlip may have been the best shot in England, but he was, thought Randolph, a funny fellow. Those stories of Gilbert's loader keeping score and comparing notes with Lionel Stevens' man, it looked as though there might be a personal rivalry starting up. Gilbert smiled his never very convincing smile.
Ah, well, I wasn't intending to take a pot shot at your Roman Emperor, what?
Wouldn't have mattered anyway, only one of those casts, you know, get them at the British Museum. No value at all. Not that you'd have been loaded. At least I hope you wouldn't.
And on this tree there was a branch,
the prettiest branch you ever did see. Well, the branch was on the tree.
At Batty Clump, in the middle of Nettleby Park, the white-smocked beaters had begun to walk slowly through the coppice of mixed Scots firs and deciduous trees, tapping the tree trunks and emitting churring sounds and whooping. Gamekeeper Glass was happier now that his army was on the move. Further down the line, Tom Harker was whistling a high, clear note. There were to be 9 guns that day. Sir Randolph considered 8 to be enough and was proposing to be self-effacing, to concentrate more on the placing of the guns than on his own sport.
Morning, Glass.
Sir Randolph, gentlemen, Lord Hartlip.
Looks as though we should have a good day, Glass, what?
I hope so, your lordship.
Ellen was hurrying along the corridor when she saw Sir Randolph's grandson, Osbert, coming towards her in pyjamas, with one very muddy leg.
Master Osbert, you're dripping on the carpet. I'm just going back to get dressed. The thing is, I went to feed Elfrida, and I was just moving the cage to let her get to the better grass, and it tipped over and I fell in the pond.
What about your duck?
She flew off, but she'll come back soon. She hasn't had breakfast. She always has lots of woodlice and stuff, so I know she'll come back soon. I'll keep on looking for her.
Ellen knew that the last day of a shooting party ended with a duck shoot by the river at dusk. She also knew that the rules of the sport were inexorable. Even Sir Randolph could not refuse his guests the opportunity of shooting at wild duck just because a child's tame duck might have chanced among them. She hoped fervently that Osbert was right about the attractions of woodlice.
Listen, I know where all the wild duck are. They're down by the bridge. If she's not back after lunch, I'll come with you and find her. Does she come if you call?
Yes.
Well, that's all right, then.
Tom Harker enjoyed his solitude at the end of the line of beaters. He had given Dan Glass, the keeper's son, his views on the game laws, and 2 of the loaders had embroiled him, somewhat against his will, in a political argument. Both claimed that the Tory party had the interest of the agricultural worker at heart. Tom took the view that the landlord was the cause of crime, for he invented the laws and the punishment for breaking them. If the land belonged to all, there would be no law of trespass. He'd quoted Lloyd George, but that met with short shrift. Now he was content, waiting for the shooting to begin. Gamekeeper Glass would have preferred not to have had Tom Harker on the shoot, but they were short-handed. Sir Randolph liked him, though privately he thought that no one would ever stop Tom Harker poaching.
Fine piece of thatch you did on that roof at Hamlington, Harker. We've a couple of cottages here in the village we want done this year. Have a word with Mr. Dawes.
And you score.
Quiet.
Fine bitch, Randolph. Well, Glass, shall we give her some work?
Lord Hartlip's wife, Aline, was in her room writing letters. It was not yet time to change into the tweed she would wear when she joined the guns for the afternoon. Aline liked to joke that Sir Randolph considered conversation between the sexes immoral before lunch. She put pen to paper.
Mon petit ami.
Younger admirers were very sweet, of course, but so tiring.
You make me very unhappy by being unhappy. You were to be gay and carefree and always laughing and a little bit unkind. Don't you remember?
Sometimes, thought Aline, she only kept up with these young men because it was part of what she represented to her small but devoted circle. When ambassadors called, or politicians with their way in the world to make, there should be a young man with her, looking serious and offended. It was part of the background against which her pale beauty stood out at its most exotic and treacherous.
Mon petit soldat bleu. Call on me next week when I am back in London. But no horrid moods. I cannot bear them.
As Aline was writing, Olivia Lilburn was reading. Not the Ruskin lovingly given her by Lionel Stevens, but The Grandeur That Was Rome by F.W. Stobart. She'd been told by a childhood governess that the correct thing to do was to have on hand one serious book and one less serious. A later French governess had added the necessity for something in that language as well. She enjoyed the Stobart, and at the same time was reading Turgenev's Smoke, which she adored, and Victor Hugo's Les Miserables, which she detested. She was strict with herself and did not skimp. She left Turgenev till last. There was no English novelist, she felt, who created women she could so much admire, or showed such true perception about feelings. She wished her husband did not despise such reading. By studying feeling, she thought you would get better at it. It seemed to Olivia as important to feel truthfully as to think truthfully. Out near Batty Clump, Bob Lilburn had just asked Gilbert Hartlip whether it was true that he had once at Sandringham had 7 birds dead in the air at the same time.
Yes. Of course, conditions there are so good that one tends to find one's best form, especially when there's such a virtuoso as the King to spur one on.
Bob Lilburn had shot with the King too at Lowther. The Kaiser had been there as well.
He doesn't do badly, does he? Considering he only uses a 20 bore because of the arm. He can be charming. Arrogant, of course.
Bob doubted whether a fellow with a withered arm could ever be trusted.
A great friend of mine's got a withered arm. Mauled by a tiger in India. Nothing wrong with him.
Olivia's reading was interrupted by Sir Randolph's eldest granddaughter, Cicely, who appeared excited at her door.
I must tell you something. May I?
Olivia liked Cicely's liveliness and suspected her of having more courage than she herself had ever had. Cicely, she thought, might well choose to be unconventional.
The grandeur that was Rome can wait. What is it?
It's Ellen, the lady's maid. She helps Osbert with Elfrida sometimes.
Oh, yes. What about her?
Well, she's had the most extraordinary letter.
Has she indeed? Come and tell me all about it.
The first shot came from Gilbert Hartlip, immediately followed by the thump of a pheasant hitting the ground from a considerable height. For a few seconds there was only the sound of the approaching beaters, an alarm call from a running pheasant in the undergrowth, a scattering of blackbirds from the bramble bushes, then the loud whir of wings, and the birds began to fly out, at first in ones and twos, and then in rapidly succeeding groups, high and fast. Each shooter discharged his 2 barrels, held out his gun to be exchanged and fired again with intense concentration for the space of about 6 minutes. The beaters reached the fence at the edge of the wood and faced the guns. With a final swing, Lionel Stevens brought down a high bird a few yards behind him. It could be heard hitting the ground in the renewed silence. As it fell, Percy Maidment, Lionel's loader, said aloud,
"That's 15 for Mr. Stevens."
All morning, the sound of shooting came intermittently from the park. A breeze had come up and carried the salvos through the window of Olivia's room. She did not listen, concentrating instead on the tale of Ellen's letter, which Cicely was telling her.
You are truth because you are beauty, or beauty because you are truth, and you cannot stop me dying for you.
That's what he said, yes.
Oh, very literary.
I know, who'd have thought it?
Oh, dear. I suppose they'll be wanting us for lunch before long.
Yes.
Not only was Percy Maidment adept as a loader, he was also fiercely competitive. The notions of gentlemanly sport were inimical to him. He wanted Lionel Stevens to beat Gilbert Hartlip. The object of shooting parties, he considered, should be to shoot more game than anyone else. He had bet Lord Hartlip's loader, Albert Jarvis, 10 shillings that he would. In her room, Aline Hartlip was also concerned with matters of money.
Dear Mr. Van Fleet, I am very disappointed in the performance of the shares you recommended to me.
It annoyed her to be reminded of the necessity for money. Gilbert, as financial provider, was as correct as in every other way. Her lover Charles was occasionally generous, others too. But an existence as exquisite as Aline's needed unlimited finance.
I understand from a source very close to the company, I cannot say more, that shares in Hergesheimer gold mines are likely to rise sharply within the next few weeks. Please sell the shares you put me in and buy Hergesheimer instead.
Too often she felt reduced to having to concern herself with affairs she thought would have been more properly dealt with by a man. But for this to happen would have involved explanations she preferred not to make.
Meanwhile, please ask your accounts department to desist from sending me begging letters. There.
Eileen? They're preparing the brake to take us down to the chute.
The guns waited 50 yards or so apart. Sir Randolph had placed the best shots, Gilbert Hartlip and Lionel Stevens, at the end of the line, since there was usually a great concentration of birds in that corner, and they could expect some excitement. He stood himself well back midway between them, to pick off any birds that sheer pressure of numbers might oblige them to leave. The birds came over high and fast. Even so, the two experts in front of him were so quick and accurate that not many passed them.
Well, lass, you don't often see shooting like that.
I've never seen anything like it, Sir Randolph.
Randolph noticed the loaders, Jarvis and Maidment, picking up birds with a haste which seemed almost frantic. Hardly straightening their backs, they hurried to and fro across the small area of ground which was most thickly strewn with corpses, as if they themselves were under fire. He was astonished to see the two of them waylay his dog and attempt to grab a pheasant from her mouth. When she dropped it, the two began to quarrel loudly as to whose bird it was. He was relieved to see Gilbert Hartlip step in.
What's all this? I was under the impression that this was Mr. Stevens' bird, my lord.
Where was it lying?
Just there, my lord.
Well, then it's one of mine. Pick it up, would you, Jarvis?
Gilbert!
Excellent morning, Randolph. Well done, Glass.
Thank you, my lord.
That loader of yours seems rather jealous on your behalf.
Good man, Jarvis. Been with me for years. He's not usually wrong about that sort of thing.
Sir Randolph did not like to object further, but it seemed appropriate to his mood that the first cloud of the day had crept up to cover the sun. The Nettleby's big Daimler was bringing the ladies to lunch at the boathouse. The food had been prepared at the house and sent ahead, to be carried into the boathouse by footmen, the hot food in straw boxes to keep it warm. Chicken mayonnaise with boiled potatoes, lobster vol au vent, chestnut puree shot through with pure whipped cream, champagne and lemon squash. In the back of the Daimler they were discussing the handsome Hungarian guest, Count Tibor Rokoszy, and his suitability as a suitor for Cicely, the Nettleby's granddaughter. Cicely was seated beside the driver, and separated by a glass screen, could not hear the conversation.
Her father's against her marrying a continental. And if there was a war, we'd all be on the same side. After all, the royal families are all related.
What does Cicely think about it, I wonder?
Behind the glass, Cicely was, in fact, thinking of her delightful conversation with Tibor Rokoshi the previous evening.
When I go to stay with my uncle, who is a Russian Grand Duke, we go wolf hunting in the forest with a pack of borzos. If you come to stay with me in Hungary and we go hunting, no one will be allowed to ride in front of you.
Why not?
Because you are my guest.
But I don't speak Hungarian.
And nobody does. We speak French. How is your French?
Très convenable, according to Mademoiselle.
The English nation seemed to the Hungarian Count the most prosperous and secure in the world, and the English upper class the most enviable. To move at ease in that society seemed to him one of the chief joys of the cosmopolitanism to which his membership of the European aristocracy gave him access. He would have been surprised to learn that his host, Sir Randolph, considered cosmopolitanism a vice.
Oh, Cicely will enjoy speculating. She's not like you, Olivia, with those high ideals which make you the princesse lointaine for so many admirers. Well, very few of us are. That's why we cherish you so.
Olivia looked out of the window and wondered whether she would find herself sitting next to Lionel Stevens at lunch.
And on this branch there was a twig,
the prettiest twig you ever did see. Well, the twig was on the...
Cornelius Cardew made his way briskly towards the gunfire. He had already ascertained in the village that the Nettleby shooting party would take lunch at the boathouse. Reaching a wicket gate into the woods of the Nettleby estate, he was horrified to find one of Gamekeeper Glass's gibbets crowded with corpses in varying degrees of decomposition. The topmost rail held a row of small mammals, moles, squirrels, weasels and stoats. Below them were the black feathers and evil beaks of crows, then magpies and jays, and below again the speckled feathers of kestrels and sparrowhawks, their fine-boned heads mostly skeletal, eye sockets void. On the bottom rail hung 3 tawny owls and a barn owl, wings hanging open, swaying as the breeze touched them.
Cats! Absolute cats!
Cornelius fixed the square of cardboard on which was written in large red letters, "Thou shalt not kill," firmly to the top of his long blackthorn stick. He heard the beaters coming towards him through the woods, breaking twigs and branches, whistling, tapping, irrevocably advancing. Trapped between this approaching army and the guns in the open space beyond the trees, Cornelius felt the whole wood alive. Dozens of pheasants were running through the undergrowth. Finally, with a whir of wings, a cockbird flew out of the high branches into the sunlight. Lord Hartlip's shot stopped it instantly. And then, suddenly, the air was full of pheasants. The shooting was continuous now. Cornelius could smell cordite. Scattered pellets fell all around him. He grasped his banner firmly and raised it above his head.
Enough of this.
He stepped out from the trees and began to march down the line in front of the guns.
What the hell is that man doing? Look out, you fool!
Gamekeeper Glass took a firm hold of Cornelius and pulled him, protesting, to where Sir Randolph Nettleby stood.
Damn fool deserves to be shot.
Let me go, I say!
Very nearly was.
Leave me alone!
Can't do that for your own safety, sir.
You don't approve of our sport, I fear.
It's not my idea of sport. It is my idea of murder.
I don't think we've met before, have we?
Read this.
The Rights of Animals. A vindication of the doctrine of universal kinship by Cornelius Cardew.
My own work.
Delighted. These pheasants, of course, if one wanted to be legalistic about it, wouldn't be here at all if we hadn't hatched them out, reared the chicks. You might say we give them life, and then after a bit we take it away again, abrogating to ourselves somewhat godlike powers, I admit. But let's not bother with all that. This is a very well-produced pamphlet, Mr. Cardew. Tell me, where do you get such a thing printed? Is it very expensive? I do hope you don't mind me asking.
Not at all. There's a very good printer at Dorking, an excellent man of anarchist views. He gives me very good rates.
Ah, I shouldn't get such good terms, I suppose.
Are you a pamphleteer, sir?
I was thinking of making a foray in that direction. The neglect of rural life in this country. People don't understand its traditions, in which I would include its sports.
Rural life? Would that include the plight of the agricultural labourer?
Certainly. Unless we support our agriculture, people who work on the land will soon be as poor as the Irish.
The decay of rural life. The decay. The ruin, even. Would you say ruin?
The ruin, if you like.
Then I'm sure I could interest my printer friend. The ruin of rural England, polemic. No, a diatribe. Could you make it a diatribe?
Certainly I could make it a diatribe.
And deserves to be shot.
I say, these murderers are a hot-blooded lot, you know. They need their lunch. May I keep your pamphlet and your address?
My card?
Ah, Hindhead. How charming. We'll certainly be in touch. You'll broach the matter with your printer friend.
Oh, he shall send you an estimate without fail. Good day to you, sir.
The shooters made their way slowly to the boathouse, in twos and threes, talking. Lionel Stevens hung back, finding himself at the last minute unaccountably afraid of setting eyes upon Olivia, as if he could not be sure what might happen when he did. In front of the building, Cicely was petting the pony, who was harnessed to the game cart. She kissed him on the nose. The pony drew his lips back from his yellowing teeth, and then, as if embarrassed by the laughter this caused, lowered his head and rubbed against the front of Cicely's tweed jacket, almost knocking her over. T-Ball Rockershy saw all this.
Manners!
He's not used to be kissed by pretty young ladies.
It's a funny reaction, to make a face like a camel.
Well, if you would care to experiment, I can make some very pretty faces.
And you always do when kissed on the nose?
Almost always. Yes.
Beside the river, the beaters ate baked potatoes and stew. Tom Harker was content. The food smelt good, and behind and beyond the food, the fallen leaves, the dark earth, and the river smelt good. So did his own old coat, and the hands he held up to his nose, warming them around the potatoes. In the boathouse, Cicely was now telling Lionel about the letter Ellen the lady's maid had received from John the footman. Warming herself by the log fire, Olivia looked on.
Apron pocket this morning. It said such wonderful things. That she was truth because she was beauty, and that he was going to fight for her sake.
Lionel frowned. This was the letter he had written to Olivia and discarded, or a copy of it.
Where did she find this letter?
John gave it to her. It was quite unlike him, Ellen said.
Well, perhaps someone else wrote it for him.
Well, Ellen was pleased.
What would you think, Olivia, should you receive such a letter?
I should be dreadfully embarrassed.
Why?
Oh, I should feel ashamed. I should know I wasn't in the least worthy of it.
Wouldn't you be secretly just a little pleased?
Olivia shook her head, smiling, a little flushed. Lionel thought she would have liked it. I should have sent it. Cicely saw her grandmother looking at her across the room. From an almost imperceptible shake of Minnie's head, Cicely knew that she was to change the subject immediately.
Count Rockershy, what do you shoot in Hungary?
As I told you, wolves.
Tom Harker stood apart from the other men, sitting in groups by the riverbank, relaxing for a few minutes before the call to action, smoking and talking. He watched as the guns emerged from the boathouse. Sir Randolph was first, striding towards Gamekeeper Glass. Last out of the boathouse were Lionel and Olivia.
Wouldn't it be lovely to live here always?
In this little house?
Yes.
If I could have my books with me, and if I were in love with my companion, and if we could keep it warm.
I could be happy here alone.
That would be a waste.
Of what?
Of you.
You don't know me very well if you think that.
Perhaps I don't. But then, why do I feel as if I do?
I don't know.
We know each other because our souls knew each other before.
Did they? Where?
Oh, I don't know. Heaven or somewhere.
Yes. It's as if...
Come along, Stevens. Come and say I started without you.
No, indeed not.
Olivia turned a gaze of marvellous brilliance on Lionel.
We are lucky, aren't we? To have such weather, I mean.
She was not sure why she was so excited. She knew it was something to do with the sunlight through the trees, and the groups of men converging by the river, and the whining of Glass's dog. It was even to do with Lady Hartlip's hat, a dark velvety thing with a sweeping feather, and with the keen expectation shining in Cicely's eyes. as she walked beside Tibor Rokoshi. She thought,
it's like an army. We have bivouacked and are moving off now to the front line. War might be like this. Casual, friendly and frightening. Like before a cricket match.
She looked again at the broad-shouldered sportsmen, with their air of assurance, their common assumptions, their absolute authority.
Are we really all so beautiful and brave? Or do we just think we are?
Gilbert Hartlip was always tense when shooting, but today there was also a curious underlying feeling of dissatisfaction. For years he had had few rivals, and those he had he respected. But Lionel Stevens did not even shoot much. He certainly did not take it seriously. More than this, he was probably half Gilbert's age. He was probably being egged on by the women, Cicely and Olivia. That was it, yes.
Jarvis, me lord, we're out for a high score, right?
Beside the river, Osbert Nettleby, Randolph's 10-year-old grandson, was looking for his pet duck, Elfrida. Osbert had seen duck shoots and knew how deadly the slaughter at dusk could be. Osbert began to walk slowly along the path. Gilbert Hartlip watched as Lionel Stevens and Olivia Lilburn came towards the line of the next stand. Reaching the stile, instead of merely holding out an arm, Lionel put both hands on Olivia's waist, as if to help her jump down. He saw them pause.
Back at the boathouse, you were going to tell me something. You said, as if...
Oh, yes. As if you were my long-lost brother.
Brother? Oh, I see. There.
Lionel, I'm sorry. I wouldn't for the world have said anything you wouldn't like.
Olivia, I love you terribly.
Oh, I've been so stupid.
No.
I thought it was just that we liked each other, that we had things in common.
We do, we have.
It was more than that. I didn't recognise it.
I shouldn't have said it.
No, it's wrong not to recognise things.
Don't let it mean that you change, that you avoid me.
So that was what it was. All the time.
Yes.
That was what it was. What it is. I love you too.
The shooting began. Olivia stood beside Lionel as if in a column of divine flame, hardly noticing the noise or the smell of cordite, or the cries of the beaters, or the thumps of birds falling dead on the grass. She was deaf to everything except the soundless shout of triumphant love. Lionel, his sense of glory endowing him with an extraordinary alertness, shot with complete carelessness and complete accuracy. 2 shots, a change of gun, 2 more shots. Each shot brought down a bird. Gamekeeper Glass was proud. The day was a success. He turned to his son.
You see Mr. Stevens, Dan?
Dad?
Shooting like an angel. 2 of the best shots in England, Mr. Stevens and Lord Hartlip.
As the gunfire subsided, Lionel and Olivia began to feel the strain of their secret.
We could say we had a headache and go home. 2 headaches.
Only Gilbert Hartlip has headaches. After every shoot, apparently. Aline told me.
Feeling that they ought not to draw attention to themselves, Olivia walked over to join Aline Hartlip, who slipped an arm through hers.
Olivia! What a perfect day.
It's getting rather colder.
Well, not for you, my dear. Anyone's only got to look at your face. It's all right. I'm the soul of discretion.
At that moment, Cornelius Cardew was heading away from Nettleby through the Oxfordshire countryside. The feeling of elation which had possessed him as he left Sir Randolph had faded. He and Sir Randolph were on opposite sides. Yet any man who wanted to write a polemical pamphlet must be of a philosophical turn of mind, capable of seeing things not only and exclusively from the point of view of his own interest. They should have talked more about the land. Cornelius felt in his pocket. He had a pamphlet on land reform. It would only take him an hour to retrace his steps.
One might as well try. Yes.
Soon he was striding out again, back towards Nettleby. Workers in the field straightened their backs to stare at the tall figure passing by on the road. singing as he walked.
The ground on which we stand. Why should we be beggars with the ballot in our hand? God gave the land to the people. The land, was God who gave the land.
And on this twig there was a bird,
the prettiest bird you ever did see. Well, the nest was on.
Young Dan Glass watched his father, the gamekeeper, enjoying the day, thrilled at the success of the Nettleby shoot. In some ways this made his dilemma greater, for increasingly Dan was convinced this was not the life he wanted. He would take up Sir Randolph Nettleby's offer to pay for his education. He would become a scientist. Yet Dan loved his father and did not want to hurt him. As Dan thought about all this, Keeper Glass turned to his son and grinned.
Tell you what, Dan. You can go for stop this time. Closer in, see more of the sport.
I like that. Couldn't see much on that last drive.
Glass thought, what better life for a boy? Lord Hartlip and Lionel Stevens were shooting magnificently. The shoot was heading for a record bag, 504 pheasants already, plus the hares, rabbits and woodcock. Yes, better by far for Dan than shutting him up in some laboratory. Sir Randolph, who was walking with Gilbert Hartlip to the next stand, was exhilarated.
It was good today, wasn't it? Quite exciting.
A bit too exciting for some people, the way they were shooting.
Really?
Lionel Stevens seems a rather jealous shot.
Randolph had himself seen the men who loaded for Lionel and Gilbert squabbling over which of their masters had bagged a bird. When the opportunity arose, he took Glass aside.
It seems there's a bit of feeling between Lord Hartlip's loader and Mr. Stevens' fellow.
They're at daggers drawn. Trouble is, Mr. Stevens scores higher just now, and Lord Hartlip's not used to that.
I see. I'll talk to Mr. Stevens about it.
Down by the river, Ellen the maid was searching. She knew that soon the guns would turn towards the water to take the duck, as was the custom at the end of a shooting party.
Master Osbert!
She had promised to help Sir Randolph's grandson look for his tame mallard Elfrida. As she walked across the water meadow, she thought about the letter in her pocket from the footman, John. She did not know whose voice that was, but it was not John's. She didn't want to be died for because of a lot of stuff about beauty and truth.
A lot of bloody nonsense.
She saw Osbert wearing Wellingtons, holding a strand of bindweed, passing it in a desultory way through his fingers.
I haven't found her.
There's a pair by the bridge. I don't know if it's Elfrida. That's still the other side of the woods. We'll find her. Don't you worry.
Lionel was indignant. Sir Randolph had asked him to restrain his loader. Would he restrain himself as well? No doubt that was meant. He had been within an inch of glory. Olivia Lilburn had said, "I love you." He had wanted the immediate triumph. They should have fallen to the ground among the red gold leaves. Instead, he had to talk polite nonsense and fall back when her husband claimed his place by her side. The consummation must come, but how and where? Well, he was a better lover for Olivia than Bob Lilburn, and a better shot than Gilbert Hartlip. If he was not going to have Olivia this very minute in his arms, then at least he was going to thrash Hartlip at shooting. He turned to his loader.
What's our score, Percy?
92 pheasant, 3 hare, 2 woodcock.
Oh, I dare say we can manage to keep ahead of Lord Hartlip.
That's the spirit, sir.
As Gilbert Hartlip prepared for the next drive, his wife Aline stood beside him, pondering what she had seen between Olivia and Lionel.
I suppose Lionel Stevens is one of the best-looking people one knows.
Lionel Stevens is being thoroughly annoying. He's trying to beat my score. He's younger than me. He should know better than to set himself up in competition. Besides, Randolph doesn't like it.
That's just Randolph's old-fashioned eccentricity. In plenty of shoots, one is actually given a scorecard. Besides, the afternoon's not over yet. You can still beat him.
I can't shoot any more birds than I'm shooting already.
Poach a bit or something. It's more fun. I don't see why Lionel should have everything his own way.
Osbert was wading in the shallows of the river, with Ellen above him on the bank. Osbert's face was beginning to have a certain transparent look. He was getting tired.
Here. Have an apple. It's not as near as it seems.
It is. It is, Ellen. It is near. They're going to shoot her. They're going to shoot her, Ellen.
Tears of rage momentarily filled Ellen's eyes. How dare they? She wrenched off her boots, gathered up her skirt and slid down the bank into the river with them. Gamekeeper Glass was marshalling his men for the final drive.
Everyone stand still when we stand still. Then you move forward, taking your cue from Tom Harker. All right, Tom?
Aye.
Gilbert Hartlip looked towards Lionel Stevens. Olivia was leaning on his arm, his head bent towards her. Funny way to behave, he thought, hanging on to another man's wife when he ought to be concentrating on his shooting. The moments before the birds came over were important. Anticipation, sharpened perception, quicker reflexes.
I said something foolish a little earlier. Will you forget it?
Is this something to do with your sense of duty?
I don't know. I won't know until I get to heaven whether it is duty or cowardice.
Olivia, love is the most important thing in the world.
But it will be so difficult.
He would show her. Her happiness, marriage, child, reputation, none of it should suffer. Only they must love each other.
Mr. Stevens, sir. Okay.
At school, Gilbert Hartlip's boxing coach had taught him to hate his opponent's guts. Today, he hated Lionel Stevens. He hated his looks, his skill, his broad shoulders, his kind eyes, his youth. The noise of the beaters grew louder. The air was full of gunfire and falling birds, the smell of cordite. Words pounded in Lionel's mind.
She will be mine. It is destiny. She will be mine.
Nice shooting, sir.
Cornelius Cardew walked steadily towards the woods. He would approach Sir Randolph with problems in which he felt sure they were equally interested. Not animal rights, that could wait, but the land, the needs of country districts. Gilbert Hartlip did not need his loader to tell him there were 15 birds behind. He knew.
Mr. Stevens is poaching our birds again. He is, my lord. Asking for it, isn't he?
What does Hartlip think he's doing, fool?
It was nearly over. Birds were still flying out, but most had gone. Glass left the thicket and saw Sir Randolph beyond the trees. He did not see the woodcock which flew out low and fast at the end of the wood, or the controlled swing of Gilbert Hartlip's body as his gun followed it, but he heard the shot, and the sound which succeeded it.
Stop! The stop's been shot! Quickly!
As Glass and Sir Randolph approached, Dan, who had been on his knees, stood and turned towards them. He was pale and covered in blood.
What happened?
Dan looked down. Another figure was lying on the grass, hands covering face, blood pouring through fingers.
It's Tom Harker.
My eyes! I don't want to lose my eyes.
Here, Tom. Let's just take your hands away for a moment. That's the way.
The shot had caught Tom on the left of his face. Randolph placed the handkerchief over the injury. Then he took off his coat and rolled it into a pillow.
I thought it was you, Dan. You were stopped, wasn't you?
Tom said one weren't enough.
Dad, run and fetch Dr. West. Here, Tom. Have a sip of brandy.
Never in my life was worse for drink.
We know that, Tom. This is medicine. We'll get you home soon. The hospital.
Not partial to hospitals. My own bed be a better place to die.
We're not going to let you die yet.
Randolph stood beside Tom as if guarding him. Olivia approached, Lionel behind her. Gilbert Hartlip moved close to Randolph.
It was a woodcock. I'd no chance of getting it in this swell fast. I dare the man was so close.
At that moment, Cornelius Cardew appeared.
Can't one help at all?
I don't think so, sir, no. Doctor's been sent for.
I'm most awfully sorry. Naturally, I'll make it all right with him. Financially, I mean.
You're not shooting like a gentleman, Gilbert.
If I could only make you see how utterly absurd you are.
I cannot think that a helpful observation.
Sir, is it getting dark?
Not yet, Tom.
It's my belief, sir, that the bullet has penetrated my brain. I should be called home, Tom. A prayer, sir, I beg you at the last. You're a gentleman, sir, but we share a God. Say a prayer for me.
Stay quiet, Tom. Don't try to talk.
Not door, I've an eternity, not the door.
Here. Have a smoke. I'll help you.
That's tobacco, that is.
Turkish, is it?
Yes, Turkish.
Don't deny me, sir. Say a prayer, I'll say amen.
Very well. O Almighty and most merciful God, of thy bountiful goodness, keep us, we beseech thee, from all things that may hurt us.
I could have prevented it. I've never shot so competitively as today. I was not as insane as Hartlett, but I was a little insane.
It was to do with what we were talking about.
No.
Yes. We were talking about something which was impossible as if it were possible. Because you were mad in that way, you were mad in the other.
Sir Randolph covered both Tom's hands with his own.
Tom, say this after me. Into thy hands, O Lord.
Thy hands, O Lord.
I commend my spirit.
Commend my spirit. God save the British Empire!
It's all right, Tom.
Oh, here's Dr. West.
It's too late. He's gone.
Cicely Nettleby had been standing beside T-Ball Rockershy throughout the shoot.
Come, Cicely. Such a scene is not suitable for a young girl.
As a matter of fact, nothing is not suitable for a young girl. Not even murder.
It was an accident.
Accidental murder.
Cicely. He was only a peasant.
Yes. But we knew him. You see?
She turned and walked away, knowing she would never go to Hungary with T-Ball. Coming towards her, muddy and bedraggled, were Ellen and Osbert. A limp, dark form was draped over his shoulder.
Oh, Osbert. It's all right. She's alive. She's exhausted, but she's alive.
At Tom Harker's inquest, the coroner recorded a verdict of accidental death, sympathising with the unfortunate sportsman who had not deserved this bad luck. But the news quickly circulated that Gilbert had been shooting dangerously. Invitations to further shoots failed to appear. Soon a notice appeared in the Times Court Circular giving the new address of Lord and Lady Hartlip in Kenya. Shortly afterwards, Cornelius Cardew joined a monastery. Olivia and Lionel corresponded tenderly until he was killed in October 1915 at the Battle of Loos. He ended one letter.
My dearest and most adored Olivia, while we can, for as long as we can, oh, let us believe.
She never ceased to do so. The giant fist that took the young men of that generation allowed Dan Glass to slip through its fingers. He became a great man of science. Cicely became a war nurse. After her brother Marcus was killed on the Somme, she felt she would never have a frivolous thought again. She underestimated her own resilience. Nettleby became a convalescent home, and in his gamebook Sir Randolph wrote of Cicely and her nursing friends.
Laughter follows their progress through the wards.
Minnie died in the influenza epidemic of 1918, but Randolph lived to a great age, cheered in his late years by Osbert, arriving at Nettleby unexpectedly with his extraordinary gaiety. But the story of Osbert, who took to art, belongs to the 20s, a period of which Sir Randolph, despite his deep affection for his grandson, entirely disapproved.